I don't think so. No, I don't think so at all. I don't think the Queen has much power at all. I think she's just like anything else. She's a figurehead, just like Obama. He doesn't have any power over nothing. Got nothing. He's got no power over nothing. This is a white man's country. This is a white man's world. The white man from Europe dominates the whole planet. White men goes into any country and kill everybody, take over anything they want. This is a white man's country. It's a white man's world. I'm not bragging about it. I'm just telling you the fact of the matter. White people out of Europe have dominated Europe and then Europe has dominated the world. And so England has manipulated and exploited the races, the peoples of the world. The white man has been using exploitation, commerce to manipulate and exploit the whole human race. So I cannot believe that some young black guy that walks in and he's going to take over the old white man's establishment on the earth. Ain't going to happen. No. They brought him in for some reason to make him look like a schmuck one of these days soon. But he is not in control. The men who are behind him is Zbigniew Brzezinski. You want to find out what's going on with Obama? Do some research on Zbigniew Brzezinski. Studied in Moscow. Pure Moscow communism. That's Zbigniew Brzezinski, and he's the brains behind Obama. Obama's just a front man. They get rid of him like they did Kennedy. Here's a very powerful man, John Kennedy. Everybody loved him. Handsome, debonair, president of the United States, wealthy, and they shot this guy in public, and nobody went to jail. Nobody's ever going to jail. Why? Because the powers that be that run this country will kill you. You think for 1 minute you're going to get out of line and be important in this country, they'll whack you so thick. As a matter of fact, the California state has a I don't know if you know this or not, but the mafia have their own license plates in California. Do you know that? Yeah. The mafia is given their own license plates by the California state government. I know because I've sat with the mob and talked with them. And they have their own license plates. I had a time, I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about, how government operates directly with the underworld. Right. And that is one and the same thing. We're talking money, we're talking power. But the governor, it would not look right if a governor goes out and has somebody killed. So they make a phone call and that's taken care of. And the government doesn't know nothing about it, but they get what they want. So in payment, the government makes a contract with the mob. We don't mess with your business. You don't mess with ours. You take care of things that we need to take care of. We take care of you. That's what's going on in California. The mob has their own license plates, and the mob has business deals with the state of California to take care of all the dirty work for them. So as far as I'm concerned, and I've been told by FBI agents, I had an FBI agent call me in my office in Glendale and tell me, Jordan, we've been watching you for a long time.
We are the people who dreamed a spectacular dream. It was called Las Vegas in the Nevada desert. Who built up Miami from the Florida marsh, and who carved our heroes into the face of Mount Rushmore. Americans harnessed electricity, split the atom, and gave the world the telephone and the internet. We settled the Wild West, won 2 world wars, landed American astronauts on the moon, and one day, very soon, we will plant our flag on Mars. They've forgotten that our ancestors trounced an empire, tamed a continent, and triumphed over the worst evils in history. In every generation, there have been cynics and critics who try to tear down America. It's not working too well lately. But in recent years, the problem grew worse. A growing number used their platforms to denigrate America's incredible heritage, challenge America's sovereignty, and weaken America's pride.
European populations decline. Scripture precept is Obadiah 1, verses 1 and 2, the vision of Obadiah. Thus saith the Lord God concerning Edom, we have heard a rumor from the Lord, and an ambassador is sent among the heathen Gentiles, arise yet, and let us rise up against her in battle. 2 Behold, I have made thee small among the heathen, thou art greatly despised. The Guardian. The Observer. Population. Europe needs many more babies to avert a population disaster. Across Europe, birth rates are tumbling. The net effect is a perfect demographic storm that will imperil economic growth across the continent. Imperil means to put at risk of being harmed, injured, or destroyed. Oxford Dictionary. Birth rates are falling across Europe, leading to a perfect demographic storm. Photograph, Bernd Vogel/Corbis. Ashafa Kassam of Madrid, Rosie Scammell of Rome, Kate Connolly of Berlin, Richard Orange Malmo, Kim Wilshire Paris, Rebecca Radcliffe of London. Saturday, August 22, 2015, 19:05 Eastern Daytime. Last modified on Saturday, December 2, 2017, 00:23 Eastern Standard Time. When Spanish business consultant Alejandro Macarón started crunching the numbers behind Spain's changing demographics, he couldn't believe what he was seeing. "I was astonished," said Macarón. "We have provinces in Spain where for every baby born, more than 2 people die. And the ratio is moving closer to 1 to 3 for every 1 born, more than 3 people die. Spain has one of the lowest fertility rates in the EU, with an average of 1.27 children born for every woman of childbearing age, compared to the EU average of 1.55. Its crippling economic crisis has seen a net exodus of people from the country, as hundreds of thousands of Spaniards and migrants leave in the hope of finding jobs abroad. The result is that, since 2012, Spain's population has been shrinking. Record numbers of economic migrants and asylum seekers are seeking to enter the European Union this summer and are risking their lives in the attempt. The paradox is that as police and security forces battle to keep them at bay, a demographic crisis is unfolding across the continent. Europe desperately needs more young people to run its health services, populate its rural areas and look after its elderly because, increasingly, its societies are no longer self-sustaining. In Portugal, the population has been shrinking since 2010. For many analysts, the question now is how low can it go, with projections by the National Statistics Institute suggesting Portugal's population could drop from 10.5 million to 6.3 million by 2060. According to Prime Minister Pedro Passos Coelho, "We've got really serious problems." Note: the kings of both Portugal and Spain were the first European countries to steal and enslave all so-called black people from the west coast of Africa, and any other areas they landed or came into contact with, under the Roman Catholic Church's granting of that authority by the papal bull, Dum Diversas, Doctrine of Discovery, issued on June 18, 1452 by Pope Nicholas V. It authorized Afonso V of Portugal to conquer Saracens, Muslims, and pagans, the non-Catholic variety of Christians, and consign them to perpetual servitude. In Italy, the retired population is soaring, with the proportion of over 65s set to rise from 2.7% last year to 18.8% in 2050. Germany has the lowest birth rate in the world, 8.2 per 1,000 population between 2008 and 2013, according to a recent study by the Hamburg-based World Economy Institute, the HWWI Hamburg Institute of International Economics. The UK's population reached 64.6 million by mid-2014, a growth of 491,000 over the previous year, according to the Office for National Statistics. On average, Britain's population grew at a faster rate over the last decade than it has done over the last 50 years. UK/Britain is affected by increased cases of the current pestilence. Macarón is astonished at the reluctance of Spanish authorities to address what he calls a direct threat to economic growth as well as pensions, healthcare and social services. He and a few friends took it upon themselves to begin tackling the issue, starting the non-profit group Demographic Renaissance in 2013, with the aim of raising awareness of the crisis. "Most people think we're only talking about something that will be a problem in 50 years, but we're already seeing part of the problem," he said. "If current numbers hold, every new generation of Spaniards will be 40% smaller than the previous one." A political knock-on effect is the overwhelming political power of the grey vote. Macarón points to the crippling austerity measure put in place during the economic crisis. During the same time frame, expenditures on pensions rose by more than 40%. "We're moving closer to being a gerontocratic society, a member or leader of a state, society, or group governed by old people. It's a government of the old." The region of Galicia is one of the few in Spain that has addressed the issue. The population of this northwestern region has been shrinking, leaving it home to the nearly half Spain's abandoned villages. More than 1,500 settlements, once home to schools, businesses and filled with children, now sit abandoned, overgrown with weeds and bushes. In 2012, the regional government launched a multi-pronged initiative to address the falling fertility rate, with plans to roll out measures such as home and transport subsidies for families and radio advertisements urging women to have more children. But it is still estimated that Galicia's population could shrink by 1 million residents in the next 40 years, a loss of just under one-third of the region's population. For Southern Europe, migration within the EU has become a grave problem. Hundreds of thousands of Portuguese have left, hoping to find better opportunities abroad. Coelho has said the next 10 to 15 years would be decisive in reversing the trend. If no action is taken, he said last year, these issues will only be solved by a miracle. The EU's Eurostat agency estimates that by 2050, Portugal will be the country in Europe that is home to the smallest proportion of children, with just 11.5% of the population expected to be under the age of 15. Toy shops and hundreds of schools are closing while petrol stations and motels are being converted into nursing homes. Coelho has called on the EU to make falling birth rates a priority in the next 5 years. This question has a dimension that is not strictly national, he said, pointing to labor legislation and the manner in which urban life is organized. Last year he created a commission dedicated to coming up with proposals to reverse the country's dwindling birth rate. Led by Professor Joaquim Azevedo from the Catholic University of Portugal, a recent report by the Commission warned that failure to reverse the demographic crisis could leave Portugal unsustainable in terms of economic growth, social security, and the welfare state. We are losing our population, as we know. These matters are crystal clear, said Azevedo. It is a reality. Facts are facts, and that is what is happening. Ad hoc political solutions at a national level are failing. Italy has tried to overcome its bleak, of a situation, not hopeful or encouraging, unlikely to have a favorable outcome demographic outlook with initiatives ranging from pension cuts to a baby bonus, but the statistics are not on their side. The country's falling birth rate has multiple causes, such a lack of financial security that prompts many Italians to live with their parents well into their 30s. The difficulty for mothers to return to the workplace also means women must make considerable sacrifices if they decide to have children. With the fertility rate falling from 2.37 in 1970 to 1.39 in 2013, the government is encouraging Italians to have children. Prime Minister Matteo Renzi announced plans last year to give low-income couples a monthly baby bonus of €80, £57, but he is well aware finances are only a small part of the problem. Last year an estimated 91,000 Italians emigrated, a sharp increase from the 50,000 that did so in 2011. The youth jobless rate hit 44.2% in June, while overall it stood at 12.3%. In Germany last week there was a rare piece of good news. Germany's birth rate was found to be higher than it has been for 13 years, thanks to the 33,000, or 4.8%, more babies born last year than in 2013. Nevertheless, the scale of the demographic crisis Europe's largest economy faces has finally hit home. For decades there have been far more deaths, last year 153,000 more, than births in Germany. Those women who do give birth are bearing relatively few, on average 1.4, children. Experts say to keep the population at its current rate, that would need to rise to just over 2. By 2060 the government expects the population to plunge from 81 million to 67 million, a decrease that is being accelerated by depressed areas in both eastern and western parts of the country that are hemorrhaging a damaging loss of valuable people or resources large numbers. The UN predicts that, by 2030, the percentage of Germans in the workplace will drop 7% to just 54%. No other industrial land is as starkly affected, and this is despite a strong influx of young migrant laborers. In order to offset this shortage, Germany needs to welcome an average of 533,000 immigrants every year, which perhaps gives context to the estimate that 800,000 refugees are due to come to Germany this year. Only Scandinavia appears to be weathering the demographic storm with any success, partly thanks to generous parental leave systems, stable economies, and, in the cases of Sweden and Norway, high net immigration. We do face an aging population, but the problem is not so alarming due to relatively high fertility rates, says Nazar Chukur of Statistics Sweden. Chukur he puts the high fertility rates down to social support for parents. One common explanation for the fertility rate is that in Sweden it is possible to combine motherhood with a working life, he argues. It is not only the parental leave, it is also the subsidized child care and the gender equality. For Swedes, improving the demographic profile is advanced as one of the most powerful arguments in favor of immigration. At a meeting in Brussels in June, Prime Minister Stefan Löfven enjoined other European countries follow his country's example. "I am not going to sweep under the carpet the fact that it's a major challenge at the moment," he said of Sweden's high levels of asylum applications. "But it is also an asset. We must recognize that if we do not do this now, we are going to have a gigantic problem in a few years." Sweden has also welcomed the alphabet cruise rights, regarded as some of the most progressive in Europe and in the world. Immigration also props up the fertility rate, and Britain and France have received a similar fillip to its population growth as a result. But these immigrants are not the same people group. But across huge swaths of the European Union, long-standing communities are disappearing and the social burden on the young is becoming unsustainable. Meanwhile, in Kos, Lampedusa and on the Hungarian border, tens of thousands plead to be allowed in.
I've known you my whole life, most of you. I've worked with you my whole life, most of you. I've been around doing this for a long, long time. I don't always get it right, but I always take responsibility. When I get it wrong, I acknowledge I got it wrong. But my overarching objective, if we cannot make significant progress on racial equity, this country is doomed. It is doomed, not just because of African Americans, but because by 2040, this country is going to be minority white European. Hear me? Minority white European. And you guys are going to have to start working more with Hispanics, who make up a larger portion of the population than y'all do in terms of raw numbers. We're going to have to be working with a whole group of people that, in fact, are the single most diverse democracy in American history and anywhere in the world. And we got to figure out how to unify this country. And you've been the leaders of being able to do that.
But speaking of the Tesla bot, I know you've talked about the importance of creating this bot for the future of AI. Tell me a little bit about where you're at with this project and what we can expect in the next coming months.
Well, with the Tesla autopilot or full self-driving, we're effectively, I think, creating the most advanced practical AI for navigating the real world. And you can also think of Tesla as like the world's biggest robot company, or semi-sentient robot company. So then, so we have, the car is kind of a robot on four wheels, and so then, well, we could probably take that same technology and put it in a humanoid robot and have that robot be useful. So essentially, to have the humanoid part, we need to develop some custom actuators and sensors, and then essentially use the Tesla full self-driving or autopilot, or just generally speaking, real-world navigation AI in the humanoid robot. And I think this could be quite profound. I don't know exactly when we will get this right, but we will get it right.
And you've said also that it will solve some labor issues. I mean, what are some things that you envision this bot doing? Well,
it has the potential to be a generalized substitute for human labor over time. And the economy, the foundation of the economy is labor. Capital equipment is essentially distilled labor. So I was talking to a friend of mine actually to say, just like what should we optimize for? And what he said was gross profit per employee, fully considered. So you've got to include the supply chain in that. The fundamental constraint is labor. There are not enough people. I can't emphasize this enough. There are not enough people. And I think one of the biggest risks to civilization is the low birth rate and the rapidly declining birth rate. It is, and yet so many people, including smart people, think that there are too many people in the world and think that the population is growing out of control. It's completely the opposite. Please look at the numbers. If people don't have more children, civilization is going to crumble. Mark my words.
Is this why you have so many children?
I'm trying to set a good example.
Здравствуйте, меня зовут Вероника Иващенко, телеканал «Спас». Вопрос следующий. Владимир Владимирович, вы начали говорить сегодня как раз-таки о демографии, про многодетные семьи, сегодня звучала информация. Вопрос в следующем. У нас, мы все это знаем, главная нерешенная проблема русских – это демография. Почему? Потому что Россия сейчас, в данный период, расхотела рожать. У нас растет уровень жизни, все хорошо, внешние блага, но почему-то люди не рожают. А если посмотреть на статистику разводов, то в том числе можно сделать вывод, что мы еще и строить семью разучились. Как вы думаете, в чем причины? Ведь это болезни, можно так сказать, именно не экономического, а духовного порядка. Вот, потому что мы всю жизнь гордились... у меня прадедушка, прабабушка, у них 7-10 детей. То есть мы всегда были многодетными, и всегда мы были, собственно, с традициями крепкой семьи. Вот. И какие меры, кроме экономических, понятно про материнский капитал и все остальное, какие меры вы видите полезными, чтобы эта ситуация изменилась? Спасибо.
Вы сказали про традицию многодетных семей в России. Знаете, по линии моих родителей, мамы и папы, у них в семьях их родителей было много, там 9-10 детей, и мальчики, и девочки. Кстати говоря, и с одной, и с другой стороны почти все, не все, но почти все погибли во время Великой Отечественной войны. Это огромная трагедия и огромный удар по нашей демографии в целом. Напомню еще раз, что демографический провал у нас случился в 43-44 годах и в 91-м после развала Советского Союза. Почему? Да потому что горизонт планирования стал минимальным. И, как ни странно, даже в 91 году после развала СССР у людей, судя по всему, было такое же настроение, как во время Великой Отечественной войны. Горизонт планирования семьи сузился до нескольких дней. Вот, поэтому вот так все происходило. Значит, что касается того, что Россия расхотела или разучилась рожать, у нас, вот я сказал 91-й, а потом 2004-2006 у нас рождений было гораздо больше, чем в 91-м и так далее. Количество рождений начало нарастать. И связано это, как бы прозаично это ни звучало, с изменением экономической ситуации и с расширением горизонта планирования. Все-таки поднять на ноги малыша – это довольно сложное дело. И по финансовому отношению очень непростое. Поэтому все наши действия, в том числе в период пандемии, были нацелены на то, чтобы поддержать семьи с детьми. Я уже сказал об этом в начале и хочу еще раз повторять. Не буду сейчас повторить, но не буду повторять все, что я сказал, потому что там сказать нужно гораздо больше. Наша задача заключается в том, чтобы в ближайшее время, на следующий год и через год, выстроить окончательно всю цепочку, связанную с поддержкой материнства и детства. От рождения и до окончания школы. Мы на каждом шаге примем соответствующие меры поддержки. Они и сейчас есть, но есть определенные разрывы, касающиеся возраста ребенка. мы закроем эти разрывы в перспективе ближайших там 1,5 лет. И надеюсь, что это тоже сыграет свою положительную роль с точки зрения поддержания процесса демографии. Но есть и, конечно, вещи более тонкие и более глубоко лежащие и непонятные на первый взгляд. Ведь такая же проблема, связанная с демографией, она во всех постиндустриальных странах. Во всех. Вы посмотрите на Европу. Везде одно и то же. С чем это связано? С изменением не интересов, а изменением приоритетов в жизни людей, в том числе в жизни женщин детородного возраста. Образование, постобразование, карьера, а потом ребенок. И это уже к 30 годам. А там уже и о втором не задумаешься. Это такая общая тенденция. А это вообще тонкая вещь. Даже у демографов, у людей, которые занимаются этим профессионально и всю жизнь, у них нет окончательных ясных ответов на эти процессы. Но примерно так. При этом, что касается духовной составляющей, и здесь вы, конечно, правы. Здесь карьера, благосостояние – важная вещь, но понимание того, что счастье, радость, отцовство и материнство выше материального благополучия на данный момент времени. Это понимание должно постепенно, спокойно, без всякого навязывания извне внедряться в сознание наших людей. И, повторяю, ничего нельзя навязывать, но нужно показывать все стороны большой, дружной, хорошей, все положительные стороны большой, дружной, красивой семьи. Показывать, какое это счастье иметь детей. И убеждать людей в том, что большего счастья в мире и в жизни не существует. Но делать она талантливо, ярко, тонко, с помощью средств массовой информации, наших деятелей искусства, общественных организаций. И поддерживать людей, которые принимают решения о том, чтобы завести ребенка, материально. Давайте будем все вместе двигаться по этим направлениям.